This is Brian Gordon with Chapter 8 of the Spellgrazer Saga. Chapter 8, Strings of Pitch. One final set of stairs led up from the king's meeting room to a hallway and to a huge vaulted door with a large metal crossbar secured by a thick, ornate locking system. The intricate design was no match for the speed and power behind one quick swipe from Ronsa. Pieces of the lock mechanism clattered as it hit the heavy stones of the spiraled staircase. Dunwall heaved the bar off of the door and set it to the side before preparing to reveal the contents behind the reinforced barrier. As the heavy frame opened with a loud creak, Chandra felt a chill run down her neck. Barlow whispered a quick prayer. His halo pulsed slowly as each syllable escaped his mouth. A soft light radiated from within each of them, a barrier against the nearing forces of corruption. A deep, resonating growl rumbled through the air, more felt than heard, and shook the very corridor in which they had gathered inside the door. Darkness, thick and nearly tangible, surrounded the small group, the enchantment cast by Barlow the only thing that held it back from engulfing them entirely. Dunwall cautiously held his place in front of the squad. Only the light that radiated from them lit up the area around them, no more than a foot beyond their feet. Ronsa stood behind him, blades held tight, muzzles tense and prepared to strike at anything lurking in the darkness. Chandra began to gesture and weave spells in the pitch, but until they knew what kind of foe they faced, she could not complete her incantations. Before she could get more than a few words in, flames burst out of the blackness, flaring down from the vaulted ceiling. Light suddenly glinted off the golden treasures that filled the room. Thick claws attached to huge, scaly feet dug into the stone buttresses above. Leathery wings spread wide across the room as flames poured from the demon's mouth, while a crystal glowing a deep purple protruded from its forehead. Dunwall immediately raised his shield to defend, diffusing the fiery blast around the sides of their tight formation. The ward from their battle with the wizard still held. A gust of energy from behind engulfed the small crew as Chandra finished her spell with a specific gesture. Her scarves billowed upward, and the onslaught was stopped by the sudden release of magic, an arcane wind that blew strongly against the fires pouring down on them. Once more the demons sent waves of flame down toward them, but the blast that had purged the flames also imbued them with a protection from that particular element for a short time. During the barrage of flaming bursts, a large wooden chair caught fire, as well as a massive trunk on the other side of the room, and a tapestry hanging in the back of the circular chamber. As the fires grew around them, it allowed them to see that tall, thin windows held out the night. Patterned rugs layered the floor. Diamonds and gems sparkled in piles, spilling out of chests filled with golden trinkets and coins. They could also see the scorch marks along the walls, as well as the charred remains of fallen warriors. Impervious to the demon's attack, Dunwall moved the group forward to the center of the room, away from the slowly spreading flames, while the demon curled up in a ball, covered by its massive wings. Barlow was infusing Ronsa's throwing knives with the power of the light. Chandra began another spell, and Dunwall reared back to sling his massive blade toward the horrific ball of terror, but none of them completed their tasks. Right as their attacks were about to hit, the demon's wings shot open and it released 4 balls of crackling blue and black energy, each seeking out one of the party members.
"Experience the nether, you wretched intruders!"
The demon roared out in its grumbling voice as the spheres engulfed the fighters and flashed away, leaving empty space in each of their places. Blinded by the flash, Dunwall blinked away the lingering brightness for a moment before he found himself in another realm, a distortion of reality. The room looked similar, but the demon had disappeared, and his comrades seemed somehow different, their faces not quite set right, their garb a slightly darker shade than he remembered. Then there was the eyes. Instead of dark pupils, the center of each of their eyes was glowing a bright, horrific red that trailed through the eerie room as they began to circle around him. Instinctively, Dunwall wrapped both of his hands tightly around the handle of his weapon. Once they had completely surrounded him, he hunched down for a second, crouching as he moved his blade across his chest. Metal ripped across the ground, spinning around and moving upward through each of the creatures, one by one, as he let out a loud battle cry, and wound up more than a foot in the air after spinning around at least 3 full times. The figures replicating his friends fell backwards, injured but still enclosing him. The imitation of Ronsa sprang towards Dunwall, and he reacted instantly by shoving the massive blade through the center of the creature's chest. It burst out the back, covered in a foul, black liquid. The other creature screeched at him in a deafening roar, so he launched Ronsa off of his blade as he swung through 2 more of them, cleaving straight through their torsos. His blade continued to move with incredible speed as he twirled and spun, maintaining his deadly momentum through a series of carefully articulated moves which allowed him to strike each opponent in rapid succession. This resulted in the creatures that were attacking him falling into various pieces, turning into a disgusting pile of demon flesh, pooled in thick, blackened blood. Dunwall gagged at the stench. Ronsa had trained himself to resist blinding attacks, and watched as his world disappeared and he was transported to a pocket of nether space. Darkness swirled around him and quickly morphed into an approximation of the treasure chamber. Liquid shadows dripped from the ceiling and into shells of his friends. Before they had even finished forming, Ronce's arms were flailing, blades running through the shadowy figures. Dark limbs tried to strike at him, but he dodged and danced around their sluggish attacks. Even the walls tried to grab him, but the vile strings of pitch were deterred as the blessings of hair and soul burned away at their viscous flesh. He sheathed his blades after wiping the dark, tar-like liquid from them, and sat down in the center of the room, unsure of how to escape his dimensional prison. Chandra was shocked by the energies used in the attack, and was completely unconscious as the nether world formed around her. With no thoughts for the world to be crafted after, it remained a twisting, shadowy nether, the three creatures of darkness formless as they moved in toward her limp form. Wicked tendrils shot inward at her, but stopped just short of piercing her as the scarves that wrapped around her as a dress unraveled and reformed into a protective shield. Latent magic energies flowed through her garb and came to her defense, lifting her into the air and lashing around at the vile creatures. Thick, black chunks flew away from the retreating forms, but the deadly scarves did not relent, and once there were no more enemies to kill, it started whipping at the edges of the swirling oblivion that held it captive. Barlow did not need to see to know what had happened. He could feel the darkness envelop him, and sent a quick prayer to Hair and Soul before being warped out of reach of his deity. Light gathered around his figure as the nether began to take shape, the impending evil unable to penetrate the area surrounding his body. "Your wicked shadows cannot blind me, demon, for the power of the light shall guide my path," Barlow shouted as a blast of light exploded outward, which melted away the shadows around him. Power radiated from his halo, which was shining as bright as the sun, and in a brilliant flash he reappeared in the spire's peak, as did his missing companions. Dunmall held his blade at the ready as he eyeballed the others with slight distrust. Ronce let out a short laugh as he raised his hand in greeting, assuring Dunmall that he was not a demon or nether creature. With a quick prayer, Barlow brought Chandra back to consciousness, the scarves lying dormant over her body after being freed from their murky prison. The demon was not to be found when they appeared back in the chamber, but both Chandra and Barlow knew it was not far away. A hissing screech accompanied its return as energy crackled across the ornate buttresses lining the ceiling and quickly reformed into the demonic creature, crystal glowing brightly on its forehead, wings curled up for another attack. Instead of using magic, though, the beast launched itself at Barlow, fangs and claws all aimed at his vitals. Instantly, Dunmall charged to intercept and caught the demon mid-flight, only feet away from the disciple. With a thunderous crash, the monster and the warrior tumbled into the treasures heaped around the edges of the walls. Metal gauntlets struck Demon Fang, leathery fists pounded at the armored shell. With a vicious swipe, the demon knocked Dunmall's helmet from his head and prepared to eviscerate his face when Ronce dove onto its back, two blades cutting deep at the base of its wings. The remnants of Barlow's blessing still lingered, and the demon bucked and writhed in pain. Its enormous arms swung backwards and sent Ronce sailing across the room and crashing into another pile of coins and gems. Chandra stepped in close to the beast and unleashed everything she could at it, the room aglow with fire and lights dancing across the walls. She hit him hard. Spines of arcane force sizzled with electricity as they fell on the demon. Barlow helped Ronce from the valuables that covered him, while Dunmall used the time to recover his weapon and armor. Regrouped, the team prepared for a final assault on the furious demon. It was Ronce who charged in first, bright red as he leaped directly into the demon. Each of the weapons he carried with him burst from its housing and flew toward the monster, each finding a home within some portion of flesh. In a hurried defense, the demon raised both arms, which were instantly riddled with blades, thick flesh burning from their touch. With a wicked smile, Chandra called forth several bolts of lightning and sent them coursing through Ronce's weapons, devastating the demon's arms completely. Dunmall's heavy foot hit square in the center of the demon's chest and knocked its limp form reeling backwards. Barely able to regain a stance, the demon dropped to the floor and let loose an agonized cry. Dunmall's shield came down hard on its drooped head, followed by his heavy blade, which sunk halfway into its torso through its neck. He shoved the beast off with his foot. A spatter of thick, black blood sprayed across his face. Barlow put his hand forward, and after a lengthy prayer, channeled the power of Hair and Soul into a blast that incinerated the bulking majority of the demon's body. Only the beast's head remained. The crystal that had been lodged in its skull lost its glow and fell to the ground in several pieces. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 8. I hope you enjoyed.